Hello, this is Roberto, and today I'm going to be talking to you about relocating to and from Northeast Florida. So I've been a real estate agent for 15 years. Prior to that, I was in the United States Navy for 10 years. I've helped hundreds of families purchase and sell homes that are coming to the area and leaving the area. And I have come up with the top 10 questions to ask whether you're buying a property or selling a property. So let's talk about buying. On the buyer side, the number one question to ask is, if I were to close on this house today and for whatever reason I had to leave a month from now, is my mortgage at or below the rental market? So what does that mean? So if your mortgage is $2,000 a month and you could possibly rent your place out for $2,000 a month or more, then to me that's a green light. If, for example, your mortgage is $2,000 and you only can rent it for $1,000 a month, well, guess what happens if you're in the military, you get orders, right? You have to transfer for whatever reason. If it's a corporate relocation or for whatever the case is, then you're going to have to come out of pocket $1,000 a month in order to pay the mortgage. You're going to get $1,000 from your tenant, and you're going to have to come out of pocket $1,000. So I always recommend, especially to my military, that you check to see what your mortgage payment is, and then you evaluate that with the rental market. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is check the age of the roof, which is really the biggest thing. And here's why. There's three types of loans that you see here in Northeast Florida, the majority of the time. There's conventional, there's FHA, and there's VA. So VA is the one that's a lot more strict when it comes to what needs, the condition of the property, what needs to be there or whatnot. One of the things is the roof can't be too old. So if the roof is over 15 years, 90% of the time it's problematic. It could be even less than that, and there's foliage around there, and there's a lot of wear and tear on the roof, and visually it looks like it's distressed. That could be problematic. So if you get a house that maybe the roof looks okay, but it's 15 years old, guess what happens when your orders are due in 4 years? It's going to be a challenge to sell it. You might need a new roof. So be very careful with that. And that's something that I always guide my buyers towards, or at least I highlight, right? Just to make sure that there's no surprises when it's time to sell. So that's really important. Number two is make sure that you buy a property that is attractive to the masses. What does that mean? I've had clients that say, Roberto, I'm a single person and I just want a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. I don't care about garage or anything like that. Now, if there was a market for that here, then fine, right? There's a lot of inventory that turns that has that description, but there's not. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garages are our meats and potatoes. That's the majority. So I would recommend that that's the type of property you buy. You buy a 4-bedroom, you buy a 3-bathroom instead of a 2, but that's the majority. Not to say that that's always the case. Sometimes there's a great deal on a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom townhouse, right? I'm just talking about the majority of the times, and it will be case by case. So that is, those are the top 3. So number one, to repeat myself, is make sure that if you had to rent your property, you can rent it for as much as you're paying for a mortgage or more, right? That's number one. Number two, make sure to check the age of the roof, because you have a 15-year-old roof. It's time for you to transfer in 14 years. It's gonna be very hard to sell. You might need to get a new roof. That's not cheap. There's a way around that. We can talk about that later. And then number 3 is making sure you buy a property that would be attractive to the masses when it's time to sell. So let's talk about selling. On the selling side, what are the 3 out of 10 most important things to consider when it's time to sell? Here is number 1, pricing. Pricing is critical. 76% of the homes that come on the market sell. 76. That's 24% of the market doesn't sell when, the first time up. And that is because people overprice the house. Sellers are naturally going to want more for the property. But as a real estate professional, it's critical that we educate them so that the house is priced appropriately, because if not, it's just going to sit on the market and nobody wins, right? Nobody wins, nobody is happy. You get a lot of agents that they do what's called buy the listing. And what that means is that they list it for whatever the seller wants. I'm like, oh, I want you to list it for this amount. They're like, all right, yeah. They just want to put a sign in front of the property. Seller doesn't get paid, agent doesn't get paid, nothing happens, right? They might be happy at that moment that you said yes to that price, but guaranteed 6 months from now, they're not gonna be happy with you. So to consider. So that was number 1. pricing. Number 2, condition. There are 10 things in your property that you really need to make sure are looking spotless and are taken care of. And I have the list of those 10 things that I can send you if you'd like. Shoot me a message. But you want to make sure that your property is in good condition. It doesn't mean you replace every little thing. There are things that are not worth replacing or upgrading. Okay, you won't get an ROI on that. So be very careful with that, and we can talk about that if that's your situation. All right, so that is that. Update your property. Just make sure that you don't over update your property where you're not getting ROI on it. And pricing. Those are 2. Here is the third one. Timing. Timing is important. Everybody says springtime, best time to list your property. Well, guess what? That's what everyone else is doing as well. So what happens? Supply and demand, right? You're gonna have a lot more supply. People, all the other sellers are gonna try to, that really need to sell, more motivated. They're gonna start selling for a little bit less here and there, and then it's gonna affect the market. Then your house is gonna be overpriced, right? Sometimes it's not best to sell when everyone else does. Sometimes, depending on where you're at in Northeast Florida, sometimes the winter time's a little bit better. Sometimes January, February is the best time. You have less competition out there. December is a good time. Who's gonna be shopping on the holiday? Guess what? Someone that's super motivated, okay? So those are very, very important things to consider. So those are the top 3. So if you're interested in seeing the 10 of buyer must ask questions or seller must ask questions, please feel free to shoot me a message and I will send those over to you. Along with that, if you're interested in being part of our newsletter that will give you solid data in regards to what's going on in the market, wherever you are here in Northeast Florida, let us know. We'd be more than happy to start sending these over to you and make sure that we are of value to you. And as usual, thank you for watching the video and entrusting us. If you happen to come across somebody that's thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, please shoot us a message to introduce us. So that way at a weak moment, they don't select a weak agent. And as usual, stay blessed. Have a good day. Bye.